Hi and welcome again to my video blog. So lately I've been making vlogs about some pretty sensitive topics like why society rejects transsexuals and the issues that transsexuals can face in their transition. So today I'm going to continue a bit along that line, but I'm going to talk about something less negative. It's how to deal with your parents. I've had a lot of support from other transsexuals in the community, but I've also had a lot of messages and emails from younger transsexuals or transsexuals my age, many of which still live with their parents and are looking to come out to them because they know that if they're going to keep on living with their parents, then they'll have to inform them if they intend to transition in the near future. Some of these people are as young as 14 years old. And while it seems that with the internet today people can get informed about transsexuality much earlier than they could in the 70s and 80s, and so yeah, transsexuals are looking to transition younger, which in my opinion is a good thing because it can avoid you a lot of complications in life. But if you're a young transsexual, you have to deal with some different problems, one of them being that you don't have as much independence as someone who lives on his own, has a job, and all of those things. So you have to deal with your parents, with finding money if you want to buy new clothes and want to start hormones, and you're not covered by your medical insurance, then you're going to have to pay for it yourself, most likely, because most parents will definitely not help you to transition unless they're very, very supportive. So, well, the first question is, how do you come out to your parents? Well, some people recommend writing a letter to explain them in detail how you feel. I think that's not a bad idea, but you're also going to want to talk to them shortly after you give them your letter, if that's what you do. You have to be careful about the words you employ. Most people start with the general bias or prejudice that transsexuality is akin to being homosexual. So if you tell them you want to be a girl, they're going to think you're probably gay. And some people have prejudice against gay people also. That doesn't help at all. So you're going to want to both tell them about your situation and maybe inform them about what transsexuality is. Now, this can be a bit complicated because most parents don't know about transsexuality, and they might be a bit reluctant to you telling them about transsexuality and what it is because they won't consider you to be an expert. So it might be wise to bring them some documentations. You can find a lot of articles on the net. There's a site from very successful transsexual called Lynn Conway, and she has a lot of life stories and articles about transsexuals and their transition and her own transition, and a page about successful transsexual women. And you might want to give your parents a link to that site, or to print a lot of pages out of sites like this to tell them, hey, transsexuals exist, they're out there, their life isn't always turning out to be a catastrophe. Transitioning doesn't mean that you're going to be facing problems and sacrificing a lot of things all the time. You can have very good outcomes. And of course, transsexuals aren't homosexuals, they are women, and they can live as women and be very successful in life. And now, even if you tell them that, it might not work. So you might still be at a loss. You might want to try bringing your parents to see a psychologist, a therapist, or psychiatrist with you. And if this psychiatrist is well trained, it's very likely that he will be on your side. He may not encourage you to transition, but he will most likely tell your parents to refrain from trying to persuade you otherwise. my mom was seeing a psychiatrist recently, and I told I told her, well, you don't like me transitioning, you want me to stop, and why don't you tell that to your psychiatrist and see what she has to say about it? And you know, what she said is you have to let your child decide and figure that out, you know. And my mom started to give me a little more independence at that point, so to speak. She stopped making remarks, or at least, well, for the most part, she still makes a few displeasing remarks once every couple of weeks, and I don't like it, but it's a big improvement. So that's something else you might want to try, going to a therapist with your parents. What else can you do? Well, it's obvious that not all parents can be convinced. Some people are very stubborn, very close-minded. There are a few transsexuals out there, well, maybe not a few, maybe actually a lot, that live in the southern US, so, or with extremely religious people, with Mormon parents, for example, or religious conservatives that think that transsexuality and cross-dressing and homosexuality are all deadly sins, and if you live with these people, the chances they will not accept you for who you are, no matter what you try. And you can see it in their attitude. If your parents are very much against homosexuality, they will most likely not accept you, you know. And well, what do you do when that happens? Well, tough luck, but basically you have to take your own independence. You know, at some point you're going to become an adult if you aren't already, and you're going to have to get your own life. You're going to have to move away to get a job and all that, and at that point, when you're in control of your own life, then you'll be able to make your own decisions. So you might have to delay your transition a bit, you know. You have to do what's safe and what's best for you, basically. Don't let other people tell you who you are, not even your parents. At some point, you know, if you know you need something, then you have to do what you have to do. But I would generally advise waiting, you know. Don't try to run off from your parents and start a new life when you're only 14, because you're most likely going to run into trouble along the way, you know, so be careful. That being said, a lot of parents that were initially very, well, not very open about this idea get around to it, you know. I have a lot of transsexual friends who were in that situation, and what happened is they transitioned, and their parents saw in the end that transition helped them, you know, it was a good thing, and they ended up living a happier life. And your parents see that eventually, and usually it helps them get around to accepting it, you know. But no matter what, even if your parents are extremely open-minded, it will most likely come to them as a shock. They have built expectations about you. They have seen you grow up as a boy or as a girl, and they expect you to keep growing up to become a man or a woman, and to live, for example, if you're a male to female transsexual, they expect you to grow up to be 40 years old and have a job and a wife and a house and kids and do all those manly things, you know, and maybe they just don't expect you to become a woman and maybe have a wife anyways, or a boyfriend, and maybe not have children, or maybe adopt children and have a completely different life. You know, you're breaking their expectations by telling them that you might become someone else. And what my mom said when I told her about this and she saw that I was going to do it is, my son is being taken away. And basically, I think once your parents are open-minded enough to not panic about the concept of transsexuality itself, what you have to help them get around to is that you're still going to be yourself afterwards, you know. You've always, if you're a male to female transsexual, a real transsexual, and I don't mean a cross-dresser, then the fact is you've always been a woman, you know. You have always been. It's just that you don't look like it, and people perceive you as a man, but you are still who you are inside, and you're just going to change the outside, which will help yourself express yourself better and live the life that you've always wanted, but you're still gonna be you, the you that you've always been. And so you have to explain to your parents that nobody is going to take you away from them. You know, you might not be their son or their daughter anymore, but you're still their child and you will always be. And that's it. I personally try to maintain a positive relationship with my mom, and I have to say she's gotten around to accepting this a lot more now. She Ever since I was a child and I first told her when I was 5, she thought it was some kind of phase and that it would go away eventually. But now she pretty much sees that it's not. You know, I've been on hormones for over 5 months now and I'm not gonna stop. And she knows that, and I've changed most of my wardrobe and I started going out as a girl and all those things. And well, she used to make all these negative remarks and point at muscular guys on TV and, oh, look how beautiful this man is. You know, you should want to be like this and all that. But I clearly expressed to her that I didn't want her to do that. I found it really annoying, you know, even hurtful to some degree. And she eventually understood. I also told her that if she was to buy me clothing, it had to be girls' clothing. Otherwise, I would not accept it. You know, if she was going to make me a birthday gift, a Christmas gift, any kind of gift, and it was male clothing, I would simply donate it to charity, basically. I told her that. You know, it's pretty drastic. And you're told that you mustn't reject a gift, but you know, when you're transsexual, at some point you have to make some restrictions so that people understand. You know, you have to make them understand sometimes, and that's what I did. And well, it works. You know, it's not such a cruel thing to say. You know, don't buy me clothing if you're gonna buy me guys clothing. You know, you might not want to, you may not be ready to buy me girls clothing, but you can buy me something else. You know, there are other things in life to give on a birthday than clothes. But eventually, guess what? My mom offered me PGs for Christmas, and they were girls PGs. You know, some pretty neutral ones, but they were still, you know, ladies, and that's important to me. You know, it counts. It tells me that my mom is coming around a little more and that she's finally understanding. And I went out as a girl recently and she even helped me do my makeup, you know. But I know her motivation isn't exactly to help me in my transition, but basically I told her afterward that I appreciated the gesture, and basically she told me that she didn't want me to look like a fool in public, so she helped me do my makeup so I could look less foolish, you know. I mean, it's kind of a funny way of saying it, but you know, once your parents start helping you with those things, start accepting your new gender role, they're only going to get more accepting, I think. You know, they're not going to go back to being very unaccepting. The only obstacle I'm facing with my mom is still, every time I face a negative affect, like when I'm sad or I'm tired and all that, she's going to blame it on the hormones, blame it on the transition, you know, and all that. And that's a bit difficult for me, but still, I think me and my mom are making progress in our parent-child relationship, and I think things are going to get better, hopefully. But basically, it's important, I think, to maintain a positive relationship with your parents as much as possible. You know, I love my mom and she loves me, and I hope we're going to keep a positive relationship, you know, for a long time, because she's my only family and she's important to me, you know, and I know that I am important to her. And you know, I'm doing something important in my life, and I think she's eventually going to appreciate that. You know, she's going to see that I become happier as time passes, and that transition was a good thing for me. So that's about it. Yeah, so if you intend to come out to your parents, I advise that you take it slowly, you be careful, you plan things ahead, maybe bring some documentations for them to read or some links to some websites. Maybe go to a therapist with them, but you know, for example, if you want to talk to them, choose the moment. Don't choose a moment where they're stressed and they barely have time, choose a weekend, a time when they have nothing to do, and you tell them ahead, like 1 or 2 days ahead. Hey dad, or hey mom, I want to talk to you about something important, and you may warn them, it's going to be a sensitive topic or something like that. And hopefully, if your parents care about you, which they most likely do, they will understand that there's something important you want to tell them about. And they may not accept instantly, most likely they won't. But with time, they should be able to get around to it. And if they can't, well, then you take your own independence. You're the master of your own life, and you make your own decisions in your best interest, basically. So that's it. So good luck in your coming out and in your transition.